Welcome to the Treat Dog Like Dogs podcast, episode 20, what is it, 23? No, episode 24. Today's great. Today we are going to dissect a recent multi-paragraph post that Zach George has posted. Among other things, we have a panel of different guests come up and we just kind of chit-chat and talk dogs, so enjoy.
If you have a service dog and you're trying to work on exposure, if that's what you're trying to work on, what I recommend is go outside of a dog park. Don't go in, go outside of it, outside of the fencing, go like 10 feet away and just hang out. Put a blanket out, sit down, have a picnic, let your dog just relax and exist in that space while the other dogs are running around, barking at the fence and so on. That's the best place to do it, to where you are still in a controlled environment while you also don't have to go face to face with these dogs while they're also acting a mess.
I thought they wanted their dogs specifically around service dogs while they work with their excited reactive. And I'm like, wait, what? So I don't know.
Now, if it's the other way around, you have a reactive dog and you're trying to get your dog around service dogs, don't do that. Just don't do that. Service dogs are trained as service dogs. You don't want to have your dog creating a situation where it ruins their training, right? Instead, what I would do, if you have a reactive dog, go outside of a dog park where it's fenced in. Don't go inside. Go outside of the dog park. Go within a certain distance to where your dog's not being reactive. But maybe whining, and just sit there, pull out a blanket, have a picnic, and it exists. That's what I would do.
No, for real.
Straight up.
Yes, I believe that Doodle Lady has a service dog that has excitement reactivity.
Okay, excitement reactivity, great. Go next to a dog park outside of the fence and sit there, right? What you want to do here, let me break it down a little further, right? The reason why I keep saying this is because exposure, right? You're basically turning all these other stimulations, right? Other dogs, other people, other things, into a nuanced thing to where it's like another piece of furniture, right? The dog doesn't get any benefit from doing anything other than just sitting there and relaxing till eventually the dog just decides, I don't care about these other things because it doesn't get me what I want. Right. Another thing that you need to do as well is, if you have a service dog or not, it doesn't matter, when you're walking around in public spaces, anytime somebody comes up with their dog or themselves and want to pet your dog or have their dog meet yours, say no. No, you don't get to pet my dog. You don't get to meet my dog. Why is that? It's because your dog just needs to be okay with existing in the space of other dogs and other people. They don't have to be friends with everybody. They just need to exist, right? And be comfortable and neutral existing. When your dog, let's say your dog is more outgoing, friendly as hell, what happens a lot of times is now your dog has been reinforced by people coming up and giving it attention, by dogs coming up and playing. Your dog is now reinforced by that your dog will now start seeking it out, right? Heads on the swivel, looking for every person, every dog in sight to pull towards, right? Making your job, training your dog, a hell of a lot harder. Right? Your dog doesn't have to be friends with other dogs and other people. Just let them exist in the space, and don't be afraid to say no to people. Right? Because they don't own your dog, you do. They don't control your dog, you do. And if they get upset about that, is that the type of person you want to meet your dog? Hell no.
It would also pull from PA and being around other service dogs until you can manage that excitement reactivity.
I would also say if you really want to, go on Facebook, man. They have a lot of groups within different localities that have service dog groups where they do meetups, right? I just had somebody I was talking to a little bit ago on live that was literally going to a service dog meetup to go on a group walk with service dogs.
I mean, I personally wouldn't meet up with anybody with their dog.
No, if your dog is
being
already
excited.
being like a little overstimulated, excitement stimulation, then yeah,
It depends on how severe it is and what you're looking at, really, if I would meet up with somebody or not.
Mhm.
I more than likely wouldn't, because a lot of people label excitement reactivity.
Bianca, I saw your text. I'm sorry, I end up getting really busy. We need to get on a phone call. You know what? Instead of texting me, I have your number saved with your name, so it's not like a random number calling me that I'm not going to pick up right away. Right, Bianca? Next time you go on a walk, if I'm not live, obviously if I'm live, I'll still pick up with that in my live pretty much. But if you're going on a walk with your dog and your dog's having that like squirrel problem that we were talking about, call me. Call me if I'm not on a live. Call me and I'll pick up the phone. Even if I'm working, I'll still pick up the phone because I can still step away for a minute and just be like, hey, let's give the dog a 10-minute break real quick and then we'll get back to it. And then I'll add 10 minutes onto the session or whatever we're doing, right? No problem. But call me so we can walk through certain different handling skills and steps so that way we can start seeing if we can work your dog's behavioral issues. So balance. I was talking to Balance on the phone a little while ago, and it ended up leading into us talking about Zach George, and that's why I have this topic up. However, I have this topic up specifically because I want to dissect. Soon enough, we are going to dissect the shit out of a multiple paragraph post Zach George made yesterday on Facebook. And it's specifically talking about the 4 quadrants of operant conditioning. Whoa. Sorry about that, y'all. I just knocked my phone. The 4 quadrants of operant conditioning, he's specifically talking about the positive and reinforcement and punishment, but the positive aspect of it and why people get it wrong. And he missed the mark numerous times on this. Numerous times he missed the mark. And so I'm going to end up dissecting the shit out of it. If y'all enjoy Zach George and his videos, puppy obedience, that's fine. He actually does have some old videos that are really good on puppy obedience stuff, and I will give him that, like positive reinforcement, puppy obedience training, learning how to appropriately lure your dog and things like that. Zach George did really good on those old videos. However, on newer stuff, because Zach George doesn't really train dogs anymore, all he does is he's more of a political figure trying to fight the good fight against aversives, right? And he comes up with some very crass talking points these days, and I don't think that he is a leader that the dog community should be following anymore. Oh yeah, absolutely up to date for sure. It was pretty funny actually. I need to post these videos once I get my computer back up and stuff. I have a lot of content that I've been making of Zach George. One thing that he tried to do within the last like 6 months is, because there's been so many people when he talks about reactivity and behavior modification, they're like, let's see you train these dogs, right? So he tried to on multiple occasions, right? Where he did a 2-week board and train with a German Shepherd and a 2-week board and train with another dog. I think it was a Cane Corso or whatever, right? That had behavioral issues, reactive towards other dogs. And by the end of this training session, like, yes, inside his house with no other dogs, he was.
Sorry, technical difficulty here, so I'm just dubbing over real fast. I just explained how multiple weeks and Zach George had 0 progress, while me, on the other hand, within 2 sessions, 1-hour sessions, I can see progress of reduction of unwanted behaviors.
Show progress and reduction of unwanted behaviors within 2 hours of session. You know, like, it's wild. Oh, resource guarding. Yeah. I have tons of videos out there that show resource guarding and show how we work through it. You just kind of have to like siphon through it. I unfortunately don't have enough following yet to where TikTok allows me to make video groups or whatever you want to call them, catalog them basically. But eventually I will, and then I'll be able to catalog them. Like, here's resource guarding, here's dog aggression, here's barrier aggression, and so on, and I can categorize them, right? If you want me to, though, Turtle, I can make a video sometime soon and tag you in it if you want me to, and I can go through all the ins and outs of what resource guarding is, why it happens, how we reduce it on different fronts, because there's different ways to reduce it on a more positive reinforcement side, and then combining that with punishment after we've taught the dog that the resource is not as valuable as it thinks, because that's the biggest thing about resource guards, right? Uh, Ali Lavoy says the book mine for resource guarding. Can you type out the exact book it is? Unless is the book called Mine for Resource Guarding? Is that what the book's called? However, what I was going to say is resource guarding is just the dog having an opinion that the resource that it has, whether it be a ball, food, anything that it is, you as a person, is a high level resource that it does not want getting taken away, right? So how do we solve that? One way, one step. This is not the only step, but this is one step of the equation, right? We can trade out one resource for another, right? So when we take a resource from a dog, we trade it with another, so that resource is no longer valuable because there's another one. Another thing to do is utilize the resource to take away and give immediately back, so that way the dog stops assuming that when you take the resource away, it goes away forever, right? So here's a bone, I don't want to let it go. You put pressure. And sometimes just pull pressure is enough. Sometimes you need leash pressure. Sometimes other types of pressure, e-collar pressure, or something, right? Whatever it is, right? This is going to be
Negative reinforcement.
of course, it always starts with positive punishment before it can become
R minus.
but nonetheless, you hold the pressure down. Once the dog releases, we praise and we give the resource right back to the dog, right? So that creates, and if we do this pattern consistently, it creates a pattern of understanding that the resource doesn't just go away when I give it away, right? And that's huge for a dog. That allows you, whenever the time is that you actually do need to take a resource away from a dog, the dog's more willing to give it to you, because 99.9% of the time, whenever you take it away, it gets it right back. Right? So that's another step to the equation. Impulse control. That's another step to the equation, is impulse control. You can do a lot of different variations of impulse control training. A very good one, let's say your dog is very treat or food motivated. Scatter some treats on the ground, put a slip lead on the dog, have the dog standing there when the dog goes for the treat, give a very minor leash correction, put them in a sit, and time it. Don't just sit there. I want you to time it, right? If it's 3 seconds until the dog breaks command to go towards the resources, now you have a baseline. Okay, the dog can last 3 seconds, try it again, correction, sit. All right, it lasted 4 seconds, great, correction, sit. Lasted 5 seconds, great, correction, sit. And now after this one, now release the dog to eat all those, the freaking rewards everywhere, right? The treats or food or whatever, right? And then try it again. And then what you're doing now is you're timing it to figure out if they're actually making progress or not. So that's another thing to do when it comes to resource guarding is implementing some impulse control as well. Another thing you can do is, let's say your dog is highly food motivated to where they now have resource guarding issues when it comes to food, or let's say treats, edible treats, bones, things like that. We always talk to everybody about building food drive, right? You can do the opposite, right? And reduce food drive, food motivation. And that's another way you can get rid of resource guarding. You don't necessarily need to have a high level food motivation for training. There's other motivations like toys and things like that, praise and stuff. You can utilize other motivations for training if you really want to. Just food treats is an extremely easy way to mark a reward marker, saying you did a good thing, right? But if your dog has a dangerous behavior, I much prefer to make it a little harder to train the dog on obedience training, like sits and stays and downs and bed or whatever, but make it much easier for the dog to be incorporated into our everyday environment without being a danger. So I would reduce food motivation. How do we do that? Various ways. Does the dog get fed once a day? Okay, then now feed the dog 3 times a day. Right, reduce the food on that once, but now feed 3 times a day. Let's pay attention to the dog's weight and stuff, but maybe let the dog free graze. Like, you'll always have food in the bowl. The dog can always get to that food, can free graze. But because the dog can free graze, if the dog is always going to eat the shit out of the food, then we need to absolutely exercise the dog more to burn off those calories that they're intaking, right? So you have to pay attention to that. Make sure your dog's healthy, not becoming obese. But if you can do that to where now the dog no longer sees the food as a resource it needs to guard because it always has food, now you reduce food motivation or food drive, and you have less likely the dog's going to resource food. right? So there's that aspect too you can do. There's a lot of things you can do. It's not a one size fits all approach to dog training, and even with resource guarding in general, the dog has motivations, and then you can motivate the dog elsewhere. Just look at the dog in front of you, the dog you're working with, figure out what it's motivated, why it's motivated. You want to try to figure out that why. And if you can figure out that why, and it's pretty easy to do, then you can start manipulating it. I hope that helps. Yeah, genetics is a big thing as well, for sure. Here's an example balance, right? Let's say a lot of people that know me know about the pig ear incident where my 3 dogs got in a pretty brutal fight. Not hospitalization. We were able to control it within like 30 seconds, but enough to be scary. It was because they all had high value treats in the same space. Pig ears, right? One of them took the other's pig ear and the other one didn't like it, right? What can we do to manage that? Very, very easy. Make sure they're not in the same space when we give them high level rewards. Why the hell would I give them high level rewards? Right, in the same space if they're going to guard that, right? Another thing that I see a lot of times happening is you might have a group of dogs, whether it be, I want to get my dogs together with other dogs so that way they can bond and grow a relationship and have some good play exposure and so on, right? Okay, cool. Or you might have a group of dogs that live in the same household. That's your family's pack of dogs, right? What I see a lot of times is you have 2, 3, 4, 5 dogs in a single ball being thrown, right? Do you think those dogs are playing with each other, enjoying each other's space, or are they looking at the ball and saying, that's a resource and I must have it, right? I see a lot of dog fights happen because there's a single toy in the space of multiple dogs. Why? Right? If you're going to have multiple dogs out playing, you don't need to have a single toy out playing with all the dogs with a single toy. It's going to create neuroticism, and it's also going to create potential resource guarding behaviors and fights. Again, there's so many nuances, man. So many nuances. Thank you for the likes, y'all. So Zach George, y'all want me to bring up the post that he made yesterday?
Yes.
Yeah? Okay, I'll bring it up. Let's dissect this thing. All right, it starts here. All right. It's cutting off the left side, but we can kind of see what it's saying. Okay, so as many people still misunderstand about modern dog training, positive does not mean permissive or sorry. Let me go out real quick. Let me see if I can screenshot this better to make us read it better.
Oh, I can read it for you. I can read the whole thing.
Okay, so it actually shows you the left side of this.
Yes.
Okay, read it for me, because it doesn't show me.
What many people still misunderstand about modern dog training, positive does not mean permissive or lacking boundaries. When novices or balanced trainers hear positive reinforcement, some may picture treats flying everywhere, unruly dogs, and humans passively tolerating chaos.
Let's stop there real quick. Again, we're dissecting this. All right. So people still misunderstand in modern dog training, positive does not mean, what was it? Permissive?
Yeah, permissive.
Permissive or lacking boundaries. So that's not at all what people think. Not at all. What people misunderstand about positive dog training is they think the word positive means emotionally good, right? They don't think about the other stuff. The average person thinks this emotionally was good, right? So he missed the mark on that. The second part is when he says novices or most novices or balanced trainers, quote unquote balanced trainers, hear positive reinforcement. Some may picture treats flying everywhere, unruly dogs, humans passively tolerating chaos. No, that's not what balanced trainers think. I want to put this out here. Balanced trainers do not think positive reinforcement training means that at all. We see it as we are using treats, toys, affection, other motivators to increase the likelihood of behaviors going to occur, and we use the shit out of it, right? We don't think treats are flying everywhere. We don't think unruly dogs. We don't think humans are just creating chaos and allowing it to happen, right? Now, what we do see though is something that balanced trainers do see often is when it comes to R plus only trainers, positive reinforcement only trainers, that there is a lot of mitigation involved when it comes to what the dog can and cannot do in order to contain the dog in certain environments that does not allow the dog to be reactive or unruly or chaotic, right? So for instance, my dog is reactive towards other dogs. All right, cool. Walk your dog at night when no other dogs are outside, right? There's a lot of boundaries that are set. Not necessarily chaotic dogs, but there are a lot of freedoms that are taken away from the dog because certain situations are not being able to be mitigated or actually taught because they don't learn the other 50% of learning, which is the punishment side. Continue the next paragraph, third one.
But genuine, positive, neuro-affirming dog training creates purposeful clarity and structure through a strong foundation of empathy and respect for both the dogs and people we work with as professionals.
No, that's wrong, right? Showing respect and empathy towards people and dogs has nothing to do with positive reinforcement, negative reinforcement, positive punishment, or negative punishment. It has nothing to do with that. Continue.
Genuine, positive reinforcement coupled with an understanding of your dog's unique emotional needs involves clear communication, consistent expectations, and thoughtful management. It's not the militant structure and respect gained through aversive methods, but a compassionate framework that honors each dog's individuality.
Okay, perfect. So here's a couple things. Like Zach really loves to use keywords, like militant, right? Just because you use aversives doesn't mean you're militant, right? The idea of militant is you say what I do no matter what. That's compulsion training, right? Balance training is not quote unquote militant, right? Secondly, the dog's unique emotional needs through clear derives or evolves from clear communication. Sure, consistent. What was that word? I can't read after that. Consistent
Expectations.
expectations. Yeah, sure. And through management. Sure. Right. Now, the key word there again, we'll go back into management. There's a lot of management that is done that takes away the dog's freedoms because we're completely ignoring the other side of dog training. Now, secondly, whether you're going to be a compulsion trainer, a balance trainer, a Lima trainer, or a positive reinforcement trainer, you have to be consistent with and clear with your communication. Right, that is a necessary trait that you have to have in order for the dog to understand completely what you're asking it, right? And we also do pay attention to even in balance training. You pay attention to the unique individual needs, emotional needs of the dog. That's why we have so many opportunities to use aversives or not use aversives. Go positive reinforcement, work from a distance, or flood, or use compulsion methods. It's really going to be dog dependent. All right. Let's see here. I know that the comments are impeding the next part of that. I have more screenshots. Let's see here.
How is everyone?
Doing well. How are you?
I'm okay. Sorry, Pumpkin sneezed.
Let me see. No, wait.
Hey, Wolf.
Okay, so this one right here, I don't know if you can read through the comments, but if you can read through the comments a little bit on the last
Yeah, I
paragraph
can.
there. Okay.
So, okay, imagine you're preparing for guests knowing your enthusiastic dog tends to jump. Instead of allowing chaos or resorting to harsh corrections, a proactive trainer manages the environment. They calmly use a leash to prevent jumping, no leash popping necessary, and reward the dog generously for sitting politely. The
Cool.
result?
You just explained balanced training.
Yep.
Okay,
The
continue.
result, a dog who learns that calmness, not hyperactivity, earns attention, meaning they will repeat that calm behavior in the future instead of jumping.
Not necessarily.
Hold
Not
on, I'll be right
necessarily.
back.
It's not necessarily true. Again, dog and dog dependent. We can always look at like sport dogs that do bite sport and stuff to where when they pull on the leash or prong or whatever they're pulling on, it builds frustration in the dog, and because of it building frustration, the dog learns to reinforce that behavior, to fight through that pulling behavior to get what it wants, right? So again, it comes with timing as well. For instance, I can take that same exact scenario, the dog jumping up, I'm holding on the leash, I'm not correcting the dog, but I'm just controlling the space. The dog's pulling. If I let that dog meet the other people in the middle of it pulling, I just reinforce the fact that the dog is pulling and gets what it wants through pulling, right? So I'm creating, what's the term again I'm looking for? Oppositional reflex. I'm training oppositional reflex in that dog, right? And building frustration in that dog as well at the same time. So that's not exactly accurate. Again, it's a very, very broad statement he made. Yes, the statement is not necessarily untrue, but there's more nuances involved where easily that statement becomes untrue depending on the situation. All right, now that you read that last paragraph, we can, let's see, pop to the next thing.
It does cut off a smidge of the first sentence.
Okay.
Actually, at the top.
It's okay. To start with, it thrives through these elements. It doesn't lack clarity or consistency. It thrives through these elements.
Okay. Training doesn't lack clarity and consistency. It thrives on these elements. It sets dogs up for success by building their confidence and trust, creating enthusiastic learners who are less prone to anxiety or aggression. These are the approaches backed consistently by behavior science.
Okay, so with that paragraph, so a lot of nuances involved when it comes to our dog's behavior, especially neuroticism and anxiety, right? Here's an example. Sammy, we've seen Sammy plenty of times on my videos. We recently re-saw Sammy recently, and he's made some heavy behavioral changes. Sammy has never gone through any type of training outside of positive reinforcement training. Sammy was found as a street dog during the COVID shutdown. Sammy didn't have any exposure or socialization at all. Sammy became a reactive mess of a dog. Although the Sammy was only trained with positive reinforcement methods, Sammy still became a bite risk dog, an anxious dog, an aggressive dog, right? So positive reinforcement doesn't always just build trust. It's going to be a lot of factors involved as well. This statement right here is leading. It makes you think that if you use positive reinforcement, your dog won't become an anxious dog. No, there's other environmental factors involved. There's other training methods that you have to utilize, including different types of proper exposure and socialization methods in order to make sure that the dog is neutral around different stimuli, right? Without doing that, the dog will absolutely self-reinforce unwanted behaviors, right? So that is, again, is a leading statement. All right, next paragraph.
Alright, give me a second. Okay. When correcting behavior, positive training isn't about threats or intimidation. It's about clearly teaching alternatives through differential reinforcement. For instance, instead of scolding a dog for chewing furniture, you immediately redirect them to a rewarding chew toy that satisfies their natural urge in a way that's acceptable for both of you. Boundaries remain firm yet compassionate, and they can always be communicated constructively and painlessly.
Okay, so first off, aversives aren't always painful. They sometimes don't feel good, sure, but the aversives, all of an aversive is making the dog feel something that they just rather avoid, right? It doesn't have to be painful, right? So let's put that out there. Secondly, I can easily, and I've seen this before, I've actually done this myself accidentally before, the exact same thing. Dog chewing on furniture. Let's redirect a dog into a toy. The dog sees the toy as a reward. The dog now associates chewing on the furniture as increasing that behavior because it got rewarded for doing so. You are now gambling a behavior, right? We don't like to do that. Scolding a dog. Yes, I agree that like scolding a dog, like dogs don't know what the fuck we're saying, right? Like dogs don't know why we're scolding them. Like specifically, it can scolding be aversive? Sure. Sure, it can be, but like it's not always a direct communication course. So I agree, like just scolding a dog out of the blue, you can do better training methods with that, right? However, like if I go real quick to my dog, it's because I've also trained my dog with that's a punishment marker, right? When I go that means leave it, right? It's a crisp, high pitched sound that the dog understands of leave it, because the moment I do that sound, I've always have followed up with a punishment, right? Whether it be spatial pressure, a leash correction, e-collar buzz, or sound, or whatever it is. I've done something to create a punishment marker to where all I have to do is that sound. Um, that's not scolding the dog, right? However, if I every single time the dog chews on furniture, like in this statement says, if every time the dog chews on furniture, I do something that was kind of shocking to the dog, like real quick, and now the dog's like, oh fuck, what was that, right? And then I redirect the dog after that, and then allow the dog to chew on the toy that's more appropriate. Then I just won that, right? The dog now is less likely to chew on the furniture because I created a sound that startled the dog, which is aversive, right? So no doing that. But here, this is acceptable to do. Now we hit it two fronts. Continue.
Okay. There's no unwanted behavior that can't be addressed humanely through appropriate management and reinforcement of desirable alternatives. Yes, even serious issues like aggression.
Okay, correct. He is absolutely correct. There is no unwanted behavior that can be addressed through the appropriate management and reinforcement of desirable behaviors. He's 100% on this, right? However, how much management are you willing to do to allow your dog to safely live in its environment? Right?
Give me a minute. I gotta use the bathroom.
Yeah. Let me really go into this a little bit. Management. What is management? Right? Management is changing environments, changing the way you do your life, changing where the dog's allowed to go, and so on, in order to make sure that there's zero stimuli that could potentially be triggering to the dog to make the dog react. Right? That's what management is. Right? All right, your dog's reactive to other dogs and animals. Okay, cool. Walk the dog at night. Oh, there's other animals that come out at night, like deer. My dog's reactive towards deer. Okay, well, let's put the dog in the car and drive to somewhere where deer are not, and we walk the dog at night. Okay, cool. The dog is afraid of the car. Okay, well, instead, what we'll do is we'll wait until it's like just 5 o'clock in the morning when I know there's no deer out for whatever reason. Let's say that's a thing, and now I walk my dog at 5 o'clock in the morning. Like, how much management are you willing to fucking do? Right? Oh, my dog doesn't like nail trims. So instead of forcing the dog through a nail trim, putting muzzle on the dog and forcing the dog through a nail trim, what are we gonna do? Okay, we train a scratch board. Awesome. We train a scratch board. Does it work every time? No. The nails continue overgrowing. Now the quick's at the end of the nails. Now you can barely scratch the nails without it bleeding profusely. What do you do about that? How much management are you willing to do without your dog dealing with life, right? Like your dog's, barrier aggressive. Okay, well then never let my dog out in the front yard during certain hours, because I know people or dogs are going to walk by and he's going to make the dog want to lunge at the barrier. Okay, cool. But I'll let the dog out front during the nighttime. But the moment that somebody comes out there during the nighttime randomly, the dog's going to become barrier aggressive. Now I have to sit outside with the dog no matter what while the dog's outside in the front yard, because I can't trust the dog, and I have to keep my dog on a long line now, because if the dog is becoming barrier aggressive at nighttime because there's somebody that randomly walks by, now I have to just redirect the dog over to me, and then hopefully the dog enjoys the treats more so than wanting to lunge at the fence line. Like how much management are you willing to do before you decide to correct a fucking behavior? All right, can you read that next paragraph? Or
Yes.
is it hard with the
No. can't be addressed. Okay, no, we already went through that one. Rather than blaming dogs, we ensure their environment prevents unwanted outcomes and reinforce safe, positive behaviors consistently while also directly addressing unmet needs and or underlying causes.
Okay. I have really just already covered all that in my tirade of
Oh, okay.
monologue.
For example, leash pulling is effectively addressed by thoughtfully managing training environments, making sure the dog's exercise and emotional needs are met, and consistently, god damn it,
I know. I just popped it. Hold on. Continue. I put it back up.
consistently reinforcing behaviors like loose leash walking, no metal collar leash jerks, or shock collar corrections necessary.
They're not effectively addressed though. Like how is that effective? You have still left it open as an option for the dog to do. It is not effective, right? If it was effectively addressed, then the dog wouldn't do said behaviors or even think that the behavior was okay to do. That's what effective is, right? If it's effective, the dog would look at that fence line and say, "Oh, there's another dog coming by. I'm going to engage with you." Right? That's effective. I'm going to engage with you. Right? That's effective. Now, if the dog blows off my tree, runs to the fence line and starts lunging at it because it blew off the reward that I had that I've been training so often, that's not effective. Right? If I have to manage every single bit of the dog's life because it can't live in society, that's not effective. Honestly, euthanization of that dog is more effective than having the dog become a risk to society. Right? That's not effective. All
Agreed.
right. Here we are. Here's the last bit of it.
Trying to put on pants too while I do this. Respects dogs' natural instincts and emotions. I don't know what that one is because it's right in front of the word host. Them positively rather than suppressing them. Love to dig. Provide a designated digging spot and reward your dogs digging there. Passionate sniffers teach polite leash behavior while joyfully incorporating sniff adventures into your walks.
Yeah, so again, like, do you really? Of course, there are certain genetics and stuff involved. So, like, providing a digging spot, like, sure, right? But what if you live in an HOA, right? You live in an HOA, your environment and the surrounding things that are dictating what you can and can't do in your yard, right? And now, like, every 2 weeks, they are going to tell you to spend thousands of dollars on changing your sod out because it's not up to HOA standard stuff. Can you really give that dog a digging spot?
No.
No, you can't. And you can't give that dog a designated digging spot and expect it to never dig anywhere else.
Exactly.
Right? Like, even if you made a sandbox where the dog can dig, that dog still has the opportunity to say, "I'm tired and bored of this. Let's go dig over here because this is more interesting. There's a smell I'm interested in." Right? Like again, it's very loaded. And it doesn't really touch base at all the nuances involved. This is why I'm saying Zach George is not somebody to look up to in dog training because he only knows surface level stuff. He's a puppy trainer. That's it. He can teach dogs to do things. He doesn't know how to reduce behavior. All right, continue.
These methods ensure dogs aren't frustrated or shut down, but actually guided and taught within clear, empowering boundaries.
You can keep going from there.
Reputable organizations like the American Veterinary Society of Animal Behavior advocate these methods precisely because they're effective, ethical, and sensitive to the emotional and neurodiverse needs of individual dogs. Evidence repeatedly demonstrates that dogs trained in this way are happier, more enthusiastic learners, forming deeper, more trusting bonds with their guardians.
Okay, so when we look, and I've done high level details of the AVSAB, everything that they promote, as well as the studies, and we do see that in the very moment that you use an aversive, it is. Oh, you're fine. You can talk. Yeah. Yeah, so in the moment,
Jay wants uppies.
it is absolutely distressing to a dog. It is very stressful. Um, Welfare needs, yes, it goes outside of the welfare aspects of the dog in the moment. However, none of these studies ever look at long term results. And I will say that my dogs that I work with on a day to day basis are much happier being able to have freedoms and being less anxious around the stressors, right? Than a dog that is constantly stressed all the time around those triggers, that is constantly having to be managed, that is constantly lacking freedom. I will absolutely say that my dogs are happier. In the long term, if we're looking at long term welfare needs of the dog, by me utilizing um, punishments and negative reinforcements to give better boundaries to a dog and have the dog understand what not to do on a more clear level, I think I can say without a shadow of doubt that my dogs are happier. And then from there, all he is just citing sources. So back
Okay.
in back into this right here. Um, yeah. Any people in the comments? Any thoughts? Anybody on the panel? Any thoughts?
We edit that.
Not really. I just honestly, not really.
This goes down the rabbit hole of all the shit that we see all the time, right? When it comes to dog education, we see everybody always talking about surface level stuff and never ever goes under the surface, right? Because if it's a narrative, you see it all the time. Like you see it with dog trainers all the time on TikTok as well, where they talk about whatever training method that they prescribe to and how it's superior than the other ones, and this is why, right? And they just talk about surface stuff. They never talk about all the other things because there's so many nuances, right? If you want to talk about ethics, we can talk about ethics, and I can talk about individual ethics versus long-term, broad ethics of certain different techniques, as well as what we do with our dogs on a daily basis, right? It's just people don't like looking under that surface. Well, yeah, sure, Barbie. Ethics does mean feelings to a lot of people, right? And ethics, when it comes down to it, is going to be subjective. It really will be. But when we really come down to it, we have to look at the animal welfare needs, right? And what's actually long term ethical or not for the animal welfare needs. And then that comes down individually to the animal as well on whether they are content or not, whether they're stressed or not, because us as the humans rather prefer to do something over the other dogs. Like I talked to you earlier about how you going up on Ferris wheels or whatever. Some people will say that's not ethical. I will say, was your dog showing any signs of stress? No. Okay. Is it impeding the dog for its welfare needs? No. Okay, then who gives a fuck, right? However, on the other end of things, like if it comes down to like promoting disabled dogs as service animals, I would say ethically that's across the board. Don't promote that as a general thing, right? Does it work individually for certain people? Sure. Ethically, that's fine. As a whole, nah. Like not promoting it as a whole, right? So that's where there's different lines as well. Right, and that's where, like, as content creators, for instance, if we're gonna do lives and stuff like that, that's where it really comes in handy with us being very, very nuanced about things we talk about, and that's why it's really important that we go over every single detail, right? Because I could easily say, like, flooding a dog is not bad, and I could just stick there to that, right? And then everybody's going to think, oh, K9 Informer said flooding a dog is fine, so I'm going to flood my dog. No. There's a lot involved with it. What is the reasons why we're flooding our dog? How are we flooding our dog? What are all the nuances? What is the benefit from it? How is the dog acting at the time? Is it even necessary, right? Like there's so many things involved, right? Hello, Wolf.
Look at you picking your topics to be a shit starter today.
Dude, I have better topics to start shit if I really want to. I
You
just
know
did
what
have
though?
a phone
Geez, this
call
is an
earlier,
appropriate
and I
topic.
decided Zach George was a hot topic today, so that's what I'm going to talk about.
You're so appropriate with this, especially because, to my knowledge, he just gained himself a Corso, and that made my skin crawl.
Oh, for
Doesn't
sure.
he have a Mal as well now?
I don't know,
He
but I
did
saw
train
him
he did a 2 week board and train with somebody, and Mal did zero progress and reduction of unwanted behaviors, and then claimed that it was not a long enough time during a 2 week board and train that they lived inside of his house, which is ridiculous.
They lived inside his house, which means they'd be there like basically multiple days, multiple hours, like that.
Well, here's the thing. It gets even worse, right? Zach George, unlike somebody like me, where if I have board and trains, I have multiple dogs to work with at a time. He has a single dog living with him full time, and his entirety of energy is put onto that dog, of every day, all day for 2 weeks. If he can't reduce behaviors within 2 weeks, then I'm sorry, but you're not a good dog trainer.
I saw a video of him working his Corso puppy. I don't know if it's the Corso that he's got now.
No, that was somebody else's dog, and it was really wild seeing that.
The blue one,
I
yeah.
actually
Let him run out, smack the end of the leash, and then return him in reward. And I'm like, what are you teaching?
So another thing that I saw during that Corso training, right? So Zach George, I always try to go out of my way to start fights with this guy. It's really fun to do. And his community always comes at me. It's really fun. So when he was doing his Corso training, one thing I noticed in one of the videos is that he actually, his dog, his shepherd, his Aussie, decided to be reactive towards the Corso puppy. And then he recalled his dog and rewarded his dog. And I was just like, did you just reward your dog for reactivity? Like, what? Like, it was wild. It was wild.
You know, the thing is, too, is I know why he's getting on the Corso train, because the breed's gained popularity. As Tracy looks down at her little Corso laying on the floor chewing a bottle.
Well, it's not the fact
You want to
that
bet that it's backyard bred?
It's not even just that the breed's gotten popularity. It's Zach gets so much hate because people tell him, it's like, you couldn't train this type of dog. There's no way you could handle this type of dog. He's like, let me prove you wrong. And then he doesn't prove anybody
prove him right.
He proves is all right.
Yep.
Every single time.
And the breed's not for the faint of heart. I mean, I've had 7 now with the new pup, but they're not for the faint of heart.
Nope. Nope, not at all.
And they're decisive, and they're pretty black and white. They don't have the speed, but they got the bite force.
Yeah, I don't know if you were listening in, but we just took one of his posts from yesterday that was like 7 or 8 paragraphs long, and we just dissected the whole thing. Yes, balance. It becomes a commodity. It becomes a status symbol. Absolutely. Absolutely.
He's become a talking head.
So, yeah, Corsos are, like, to a lot of people, a status symbol.
Josh, you know what? I've got the breed, and I had the breed when nobody even, I mean, there's no popularity around them, and they were a quietly held breed. That's when I started with them. I love the breed, and I love the breed for its ability when bred right to shut it down. But I mean, even Josh has gone after him. I mean, he's gone after him in video after video, and he's a talking head. He is a talking head.
Yep.
Oh, I asked Josh about his mic for you, by the way.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Awesome.
And I asked Steph about it too, so hopefully I'll have answers for you.
Oh, cool. Yeah, Josh is awesome. Like, when it really comes down to it, I do like that he does a lot of things live. He doesn't sugarcoat a lot of stuff.
No, he's
a lot
very
of his content is kind of funny. And he does.
I'm actually kind of disappointed.
thing.
If you're talking about Josh, Claws and Cognition, is
Nope.
that who you're talking about?
No.
Optima, Canine Optima.
The Canine Optima.
Oh.
Yeah, so
I was about to say, Josh has recently had the Direwolf live, and I keep going in it too late, so I keep missing half of what he's saying, and I really want to know what he's saying.
I'm gonna have him on a live with me soon. We're gonna talk direwolves.
I was just going to say, don't even run me down that path, because as somebody who's worked with wolves for the bulk of my career, that I'm going to put it out there and leave it at this. A biotech company decides to revive an animal that's been gone for 12 to 13,000 years. Let that resonate.
Yeah, no, it's just not a good idea. Environmentally and socially, it's not a good idea. Nonetheless, let's digress. So yeah, Josh, One thing I do like about him is although he prescribes to a more positive reinforcement approach, I'm a balanced trainer. I don't have any problem with using aversives. One thing that I do like about him is that even with his approach that he utilizes, he doesn't shit on everybody for every single time they use an aversive. He understands the application, and he works with what he is the best at, and he does very well with it, and I do appreciate that from him. That's the only reason why I can like actually follow his content around is because of his approach and the way his mindset is. Like we could really, if we want to compare and contrast him with Zach George, we have two ends of the spectrum. We have somebody that's a positive reinforcement trainer, Josh, who is not going to shit on you for using aversives. He's going to say, hey, there may be better ways, but I'm not going to demonize you.
I
While
don't understand, and maybe you can help me understand this.
mm-hmm.
I'm trained majority of the way like Josh.
Yep.
I don't understand why there has to be a brutal divide. You know, look at what happened with Michael Shakashio when he sat down with Ivan Balabanov. He
Yep.
got crucified from the R positive community,
Oh,
and
absolutely.
I think that's absolute bullshit.
Yep.
It's not like there's not takeaways that we can all get from one another. Just because you subscribe to one methodology, I subscribe to another, doesn't mean that there has to be, blood drawn line.
Hi, sister. Yeah, so there's the reason why it's really social media based. The reason why there's such a big divide between it, right? It's really social media based. If you go outside of social media and you go in the real world and talk to trainers in the real world, it's a lot more cordial. It's a lot more mellow. But
Yeah.
when you get onto social media, that's when you're going to have the heavy hitters hitting heavy, right? And that's the problem you have. And another problem that happens with social media, for instance, the reason why I'm controversial is because not the fact that I'm a balanced trainer, it's because I don't sugarcoat anything. I show the ugly parts of dog training, and people aren't used to seeing that, so they are like, oh shit, you had to do a harsh correction on this dog, and I don't like that. I don't like how it looked. Or this dog was muzzle punched you enough to break two of your ribs, and you literally had to pin the dog for your safety. But because you had to pin the dog, it looks scary, right? This whole situation looks scary, right? And people are not used to seeing that, so I became controversial. People ignore all the positive reinforcement content and just focus in on the punishment side of things that I've posted. Um, and then you're gonna have gung ho people that think they're doing a benefit, right? And now on the other side of it, the mass majority of people that post on social media, the dog trainers, right? What they do most of the time is they post pretty training, right? They post a before, let's say a reactive dog, then they post the pretty parts of the training and then a final result. They don't really get into the nitty gritty. They don't show the reality of what's going on in the background, right? So everybody on social media that don't train dogs for a living, they see constant content of what it's supposed to look like, quote unquote, supposed to look like. And then when they hear about these other methods being used or whatever, see something where a method is being used, how these other trainers would use them, they're like, that's not right. That's not what I see all the time. How you're supposed to do is like this. It's like, yeah, no, that's not the case. Every dog's different. Every situation's different. Every environment's different. Every owner's different. What the owners can handle themselves is different. There's so many nuances involved. Like me going into a session, there's some sessions where I could easily train a dog with positive reinforcement methods, but because the owner is 95 years old with a conic corso who's going to drag them down the road to get at another animal, then we're going to end up using aversives for the sake of the owner themselves
Hey
because he
Patrick,
can
real
handle that
quick.
dog. And there's
Balance
no
is
way I'm
asking
telling.
if
Oh yeah, balance.
Balance is asking if he can pop up. And number two, I just sent you a message of how much all of that would be worth if you want to put that in a video.
Absolutely. I'll do that after this.
Because I know you were saying your training would be worth ... and
Yeah,
whatever.
absolutely.
So.
Cool. Yeah, that would work. Yeah, but what I was saying is like there's times that I would absolutely love to use different training methods, but depending on the situation, the environment, the owners, what they can handle, and so on, all these different factors is going to change my approach, right? Not just for the dog, but because I'm not going to ever convince an owner to get rid of their fucking dog. Ever. Even if the dog's not right for the environment, they're not right for them, I'm not convincing an owner to get rid of their dog. So I'm going to have to utilize methods that are going to work for that dog in that environment and that situation with that owner.
The other reason that tends to come up with the reason there's such a strong divide between R plus, purely positive, whatever you want to call it, and balanced trainers is a lot due to politics, because a lot of groups are more palatable if they come across as positive. And so that allows them to move into animal welfare spaces and allows them to become more politically motivated. So I've spoken about this a lot before. It happens in the UK, it happens in Australia, it has the opportunity to happen in America as well. You look at tool bans. So here in Queensland, there was a ban that got put through for prong collars. Now, that was a big push through an organisation here in Australia called the RSPCA, which believes that purely positive clicker training is the only way to train a dog.
But it's not. But see, and here's my snag balance, and I'm sorry to interrupt you, but while you're on this part, there's no way that anybody says I'm a positive and this is why I changed my bio like I did. You're never purely positive. You are not. Even if you are a quote unquote positive reinforcement trainer, you are never purely positive.
110%. I agree with you. I agree with you 1,000%. But this is where it comes into politics, and this is where I'm saying where it becomes more palatable to the average person. Because a lot of these big political groups like the RSPCA, the ASPCA, stuff like that, will turn around and say, we only support the use of clicker and treats. We don't support the use of tools. We don't support the use of etc. Blah, blah, blah. There was a big push. There was huge amounts of misinformation that were pumped out through the R plus community, through the RSPCA to ban prong collars. And they eventually got enough. They eventually started blocking through, what do you call it? They basically leveraged their power with political parties to get the prong collar banned by blocking a massive employment opportunity by citing animal welfare problems. Magically, when they got their way, all of a sudden, the animal welfare issues with the project just magically disappeared. So it comes down to a lot because these guys have massive amounts of money because of the training programs and stuff that they advertise, because it's more palatable and more people come to it. That also creates a massive divide because you have one side of the aisle that has this amazing amount of money and amazing amount of clout to throw around. When you look at in the R positive community, when you look at it from the perspective of the balanced community, it doesn't happen. It's not spoken about because it is easier to cause fear than it is to educate. So all they have to do is hold up a prong collar and go, "Look at how evil this is. It hurts people." And they go, and everyone goes, "Oh my God, it hurts people," and they run with it because they don't have to prove a point. And this is, when you talk about when we touched on before about ethics, is it ethical to hold up a prong collar and go, "This is bad, this is bad," and they turn around and go, everyone goes, "Yeah, it looks scary," and run with it? Is that ethical? I would say no. Same thing as here specifically in Queensland, Australia. The head of the RSPCA here has turned around and said that he would rather put down 100 dogs than punish one. Do I think that's ethical? Absolutely not.
No.
Is that ethical by any stretch of the imagination? No, because
it comes back in. Sorry, Bounce. Finish your thought. I'm sorry.
Oh yeah, so it's just you basically it covers your eyes up to the point of I'm not going to listen or train with anyone else because it goes against my ideology. And I think that's the big difference is when you look at a balanced trainer, it's not an ideology, it's just training a dog. Where a lot of the R plus community, it becomes an ideology. It becomes a Karen Pryor situation, or it becomes a
Zach George
a Zach George situation, where you have these cults of personality around them, and it creates an ideology. It's the same sort of thing you see with compulsion. Anything with absolutes creates this ideology. dog daddy is a classic example of where compulsion becomes part of the ideology. It's balanced training never really gets the voice that it needs, and that's why there's such a huge divide, because it is 110%. We're sitting here tied with, like, fighting with our hands tied behind our back because we don't have the sycophants behind us that will just run headlong into the end of the
balance
breach.
training, we don't have the constraints of ideology, right? So, for instance, there's going to be some balance trainers that are more closely towards positive reinforcement, some that are more towards compulsion, some in the middle somewhere and stuff. Most people are going to be in the middle, but the constraints, we don't have the constraints. If I need to use compulsion training for a specific dog, then I'll do it. If I need to use positive reinforcement for a specific dog, then I'll do it. If I need to do something in the middle, I'll do it. Right? It's going to be dog and dog dependent. What communicates with that dog the most effectively for whatever we're doing. That's the biggest thing about balanced training. Like, if I could give cookies all day long, I would do it. I fucking would do it. But that's not the reality of what I'm working with.
If you read the law, I can actually pull it up and send it to you if you're really that interested in it. Now, specifically in Queensland, they have made it so incredibly broad that that it comes down to things like that pinches the skin. They've also said that any object that restrains a dog can be classed as something that is banned. But it ultimately comes down to enforcement. But this is where it comes down to where the political side of the positive movement has the ability to out and out lie. Now, technically speaking, a prong collar does not pinch the skin. You're correct. However, unless, of course, you're going to be discussing it directly with a dog trainer who understands it, are they going to be able to tell the difference? And this is the problem. You go before a court. So here in Australia, if you get caught, here in Queensland, if you get caught with a prong collar on a dog, it's a $30,000 fine. 30 grand. Yeah, so you're going to go before a court, right? And that court is going to put you before a judge. Is that judge going to be an expert in dog training? No. But who's that judge going to call as an expert? Well, it's going to call a government witness. Who's the government witness? The RSPCA, who are a purely positive or R+ training organisation. They have the ability to out lie and shake things in front of their face. And again, this is what I was talking about, is that they have the ability to do it. Now, you could sit back and argue semantics. If you really wanted to turn around and go against the government, like the government of a state, to argue semantics, to try and set case law, you're more than welcome to. But guess what they have more than you do? Fucking money.
Money. Yeah. So balance, when it comes to, like, for instance, pinch collar, right? Prong collar pinches. If you look at the semantics of the definition of what a pinch is, technically a prong collar pinches, but that's not really what it's doing. It's not pinching the skin like you would take two fingers and pinch the shit out of a skin. It's creating pressure by contracting the prongs, right? But it's not pinching in the same regards, but it's still considered a quote unquote definitively a pinch. No different than an e-collar. An electric dog collar, you can use the semantics of it and saying it's a shock collar because technically it's using an electric shock signal. Although it's not the same thing as a taser shock with an arc, it's still using a shock, right? It's more like a TENS unit. So it's very different in the type of electricity it uses, but technically we can still call it a shock collar, although it's not the same thing as people would consider a shock collar, right?
I mean, if you want to break it down, originally, pinch collars were called pinch collars because you pinched the links. It wasn't because it pinched the fucking skin.
Yeah.
You took it on and off by pinching the fucking links.
People are dumb.
Yeah, that is exactly why it was called a pinch collar. But yeah, I mean, nonetheless, even with pinching the links, you're not pinching it to where your fingers are closed, and that's what people see. Like when you say the word shot collar, people automatically assume an arc, burning the skin, taser, right? You say prong collar, pinch collar, they automatically assume like you're taking your fingers and pinching the shit out of skin type situation. They make an assumption based on the word itself for what they know on an everyday. Like, what is a shock? What is a pinch? Right?
I mean, if it wasn't going to get banned on TikTok, I would pull up some of the ads that they ran during when they were campaigning for the prong collar ban. They had images, right? So there were images of people in I think it's parts of Europe that were doing it, where they basically cheaped out on prongies. And they got spiked dog collars, so like actual leather spiked dog collars, the hey, my dog looks tough fucking dog collars, and turned them inside out and strapped them on, and then we're using them as
That's
prong
messed
collars.
up. That's messed up. And then
And
other ones and stuff that I'm sure they were showing pictures of damage done by prong collars for the people that left the prong collar on for 3 months.
Or the ones how they sharpen the prongs on them. Yeah.
Yeah. And they were showing that. They were showing a very disingenuous aspect of the prong collar of people that do those things that we were just talking about to prong collars, take the prong collar away, they're still going to abuse their dogs with another tool.
But you know what? You can't even, like you were talking before, Patrick, you can't even show the brutal sides of your training. A year ago, 2 years ago, I was working with a young
I
shepherd.
absolutely can though. Wolf. I can absolutely show those things. TikTok allows me to. The amount of times that I've been reported and a video gets down, then TikTok's like, no, that's okay, because they realize that I'm actually educating and it's not just I'm showing me pinning a dog, right? I absolutely can. The problem is people don't like it.
Well, 2 years ago, I was working with a German shepherd he was behaviorally used. He was at 14 weeks old. The dog was just weird. She was working with a VBA. And at 9 months, there was a video because I wanted to show the good, the bad, and the ugly. And she was doing the work. I was sitting in the chair guiding. He redirected, came over, and had my forearm completely in his mouth. I'm watching my words carefully for your live's benefit. So in that moment, I was sitting in a corner on a chair with a young shepherd with my forearm completely in his mouth, and he was clamped. He wasn't interested in letting go. His owner said, oh my God, should I pull? And I said, whatever you do, do not pull. So I looked at what I had in that moment, and I had my treat pouch, and I crammed the back of that dog's throat with everything I had in there and gave him 2 choices: choke or let go in 2, because it was all I had in that moment. Facebook took the video down. I got a 30-day ban for animal cruelty on my account. In your situation, and that's just it. When trainers are in situations and you look around and you say, shit, what do I have? Because I didn't see this coming, which was my fault. But that, and they say, you should have just had her pull him off. I said, do you understand that if she had pulled that dog off, she'd have taken probably good tendons and a good amount of muscle with him?
Yep.
It wasn't a light bite. It wasn't, let me just feed this here. Teeth were in skin. We were clamped. I said, so in that moment, this is the side of training that nobody wants to see when the dog isn't right in the head.
No, I got a fun fact. I had to be out of work for a couple of days. I got bit in the face the other day, as well as in the arm with a bunch of punctures. And it wasn't due to any severe training techniques or methods. The fact is this dog that I was working with is not reactive, but very, very anxious and scared of nail trims, right? And so we worked through some nail trims. The thing is, any groomer that worked with the dog would cower, piss itself, and then they're like, no more. Right, no more. We can't do anything with this dog. So they only get 1 or 2 nails done, and then the next groomer 1 or 2 nails done type situation. Nobody's ever worked with the dog through the entire process, right? And then I did. And so the dog, of course, cowered, did its thing and stuff. We cleaned up, but we kept going, kept working through things, kept trying to do some rewards whenever we could. But the dog, obviously overstressed, is not going to take treats. It's like, okay, but this is also a safety measure, because if your nail's overgrown, it can be extremely painful to you. They can break, split, crack. They can bend in and into your paw pad. And you know the whole thing.
Yep.
And so I was like, screw it, like we're gonna get through this. And the thing is, the dog wasn't a bite risk, but we also have never seen the dog at its limit before. And the dog finally went at its limit, and while I was doing one of the nails, the dog lunged and bit me right in the cheek. right? Well, not the cheek, the jaw. The left side of my lip underneath and over the jaw, and punctured the bottom and created a little laceration in my jaw. And my instinct, my reflex instinct was, since we had the slip, I made sure that I created distance with the slips for my own safety during that time. Since I didn't see it happen, I just felt it happen. I knew what happened, but that caused the redirection onto my arm. Not deep punctures, but they still didn't feel good.
Right.
But I also, because of having the experience I have, when a dog latches onto me, my body, I don't just pull away. If you're latched in and your jaw is in, we just got to open your jaw and then remove my arm, because the moment that I decide to rip away creates long and deep lacerations, opposed to just a couple little punctures, right? And I don't want that. I don't want that. And then we finished the job. Like, I just cleaned myself up, finished the job. And she was like, I can understand if you don't work with me anymore. I'm like, no, that's not going to stop me. We can absolutely work through this. Now I know where your dog's limits are. Like, now I know what to expect. Nobody's ever been able to see this before. And now we have, and now we know what to do.
Well, and that's just it. When I posted that video, the amount of hate that I got. You almost choked a dog. You tried to suffocate a dog. No, I tried to keep my arm on my body and remove that dog in the safest possible way without anything going sideways.
Dude, there's pictures going around, Wolf. There's pictures of me going around where it looks like I'm hanging a dog. And people are trying to say that I hang dogs. There are some people going around trying to say I hang dogs, and they have pictures, screenshots of what it looks like I'm hanging a dog. If you actually go look at the video, the dog was literally in the middle of muzzle punching me in the chest, and my arm was out, trying to get the dog further away from me. I was not hanging the dog. The dog was literally in the middle of a jump at me, right? And it's like they took a perfect screenshot to make it look like I was hanging a dog.
Yeah.
Right? It's funny as shit.
Well, and that's another thing too. People need to be educated and understand exactly what a muzzle punch is, why it happens. Because if I hear one more dog person say, "Oh, the dog booped you," my head's going to spin off my shoulders. Because when you're in that situation and you get that muzzle punch, that is the farthest thing from a cute little boop. But that's again perception versus reality, right?
Yep. Let's see. Ellie said alpha rolling dogs in 4K. What do you mean by that, Ellie?
But and to that point, that German Shepherd that we're talking about, he was behaviorally put down at 11 months old. She took him outside. He went to the bathroom. She had on sweatpants and sweatshirt and a big, thick, fuzzy robe, which probably saved her to some extent. He went over, he peed, he ran over, grabbed her, took her to the ground, delivered multiple bites all the way up her arm, laid down, shook it off, and licked her face like nothing happened. And that was the predisposition through his life.
Oh, Ellie, are you talking about the little white dog? The little white dog, or are you talking about the bigger dog that broke two of my ribs? The one that I hung, right? That I also pinned. I absolutely pinned the fuck out of that dog, but that was for mine and the dog's safety. In the middle of a quick, like, couple seconds of the dog muzzle punching me, 5-6 times, right in the chest.
Do you want to talk about you yeeting the corgi off the table?
I mean, we can if you want to, right? Now, as far as the little white dog, that one's funny too. That they were talking about alpha rolling and the edits they put into those pictures and shit, right? That one's funny because if you actually go, I have the long format on YouTube where you see the entire sessions, not one, but like 6 sessions within one 30-minute video, right? They were smaller sessions, right? The dog did not get alpha rolled. The dog literally, the dog literally, while in the middle being picked up, was trying to fight back and squiggle around. So I very gently and slowly laid the dog down, and the dog went onto the side, and I just kept the dog there on its side. There was no alpha rolling involved. It was just the dog was squirming.
Well, and like I said before, there is a certain, from the balance community, that our positive community, there that it, like balance was talking about, that line drawn in red, right? Don't cross it, don't cross it. And there comes a point in your career, even if I mean, you and me, Patrick, we train a lot different from another, but we have a lot of respect and we get along. And I don't understand why that line is drawn. And then when you are on the AR positive side and you get in that situation, you are hung from the rafters. But then when you're on the balance side and you get in that situation and you show that situation, you are hung from the rafters. So there's regardless of your methodology, you're still not winning.
So the yeeting the dog thing, the corgi, that one's an interesting one. So the reason why the whole yeeting the dog is the terminology we're going to use is because at one point somebody said, after the video went live, went active, I put the video out there. Yes, I had a corgi groom. The corgi turned and bit the shit out of my hand, and the corgi got flung off the table as I was removing his jaw from my hand. Somebody said when the corgi fell off the table. So as a little dark joke, I was like, no, the dog didn't fall off the table. I yeeted the dog off the table. Let's get it right. If we're going to talk shit, let's get it right. Right. However, there was a lot of different, of course, Balance. Thank you so much for coming up. So there's a lot that come into play with that, right? That dog wasn't a first time groom. That dog had been groomed 5 different times by me, roughly 4 or 5 times. At that point, that dog has never had any behavioral issues. The dog is also aging, right? The dog doesn't do well with the grooming slip lead, the noose lead on it. It doesn't do well at all, and it has a tendency to try to fight and swiggle around with that lead on. And so the dog has the opportunity of falling off the table and hanging itself with a very thin line around his neck, which is extremely damaging to different aspects of its neck, jugular, and so on. Trachea, whatnot. And so we've been able to groom the dog without that, and the dog is completely fine and content. Now with the dog aging, this groom, when I went to do its, I always work with cooperative care and grooming, regardless on if you're a good or bad groom. I want you to be more, no matter what, every groom after that is going to be easier and easier for me. Right, and for you as the dog. So we work on cooperative care. So of course I'm giving the dog treats and stuff. People assume during that video I'm giving the treats because the dog is reactive. It's like, no, I'm giving the dog treats because I'm giving the dog fucking treats for doing a good job. Right, change its emotional state, classical conditioning, cooperative care. However, when I went to lift one of its hind legs up a little bit to get to the nails to do it, the dog immediately turned and bit the shit out of my hand. Since it was a first time behavior within multiple different grooming sessions, it was a very telltale sign that the dog is now starting to have joint pain that we never knew before. Right.
I was going to say that.
And so like I had a long conversation with the owner after that, and we actually recently I went back and did a groom like a week ago on that same dog. Perfect groom. Because now we have an understanding of a new issue, right? But however, during that groom, because the dog bit my hand, it was very quick, this whole situation. Dog bit my hand, and dog fell off the table. Immediately after falling off the table, I made sure that the lead that was on the dog, I stopped it so the dog didn't run off, just in case. I know the dog's not a flight risk, but just in case. And then I inspected the dog. We did a quick little walk down the drive, just to make sure that there's no limping or anything going on. And then I gave the dog some treats and stuff to reinitiate our little bit of a friendship, to make sure the dog's still good, not overly stressed. And dog took treats, no problem. We finished the groom. We also had a long conversation with the owner. The owner actually saw everything happen, understood, so on. Now, with the yeeting part, it wasn't intentional for me to throw the dog off the table. But what happened was, it wasn't just a bite. This dog bit, and then I felt in my hand the teeth sink deeper. The dog put more pressure on, and immediately after that, what was going to happen next is the dog thrashes left and right. The moment that the dog decides to thrash left and right on my hand could potentially make it to where I can never use my left hand again. Yep. Right? I'm not letting that happen. So I immediately, right when the dog put more pressure down to where I can feel my tendons crunching, I took my hand, I went to the upper jaw, I put enough pressure to force the dog's jaw open and move the dog in my hand. I moved the mouth and my hand away at the same time, but the amount of force I used to remove forced the dog off the table. Right? Was it the best thing in the world? No. Was the dog harmed? No. Was the dog fine afterwards? No. Yes. The dog was fine afterwards. Did we do more grooms after that? Yeah, we have done another groom after that, and the dog was perfectly content and fine. Right? So everybody's opinions on that shit, they can fucking kick rocks. Like, I don't. So hey guys, I'm going to end the live for right now. I'll be back later. I have some food that I want to eat.
You're good. I'm gonna go ahead and take pictures of the biothane that I'm gonna pull.
Perfect. Yeah, send me pictures, everybody. DM me if you need my number. But feel free to send me pictures if you have my number of things that you want to donate towards the future raffle, and I'll give everybody logistics within the next couple of days on the current one.
Okay.
Alrighty.
All right. Thank you guys so much.
See y'all.
Bye.
Yeah, it just wasn't